Commander Sarah Chen stepped off the transport shuttle onto the gleaming metal deck of the Galactic Council station. Her boots clicked against the polished floor as she walked through the sterile corridors, drawing curious stares from various alien species bustling about their business. The Zephyrians, with their tall, elegant forms and translucent skin, whispered among themselves. The stocky Cromlech delegates grunted in their guttural language, their forearms gesturing wildly. Sarah kept her expression neutral, though inside she felt the familiar weight of humanity's reputation preceding her. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago, and humans were still considered the newest, most unpredictable members of the interstellar community. Some called them barbaric. Others whispered they were too aggressive, too quick to violence. The truth was more complicated, but Sarah had learned that explaining human nature to aliens was like trying to describe color to the blind. The security checkpoint ahead buzzed with activity. 3 Andromedans, tall beings with crystalline features and cold blue eyes, manned the scanning stations. Their species had appointed themselves as the unofficial peacekeepers of the galaxy, claiming superior technology and evolved sensibilities made them natural leaders. Sarah had dealt with their arrogance before. "Halt, human." The lead Andromedan spoke in perfect standard galactic, though his tone dripped with disdain. "You will submit to security screening before entering the diplomatic quarters." Sarah nodded politely and stepped forward, raising her arms as instructed. The scanning beam swept over her body, and immediately the machine began beeping frantically. Red lights flashed across the console, and the 3 Andromedans exchanged knowing looks. "As expected," the lead scanner said with a satisfied smirk. "Humans cannot help themselves. You carry 17 different weapons on your person." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Other aliens in the nearby area stopped to watch, some backing away nervously. Sarah remained perfectly still, her dark eyes fixed on the Andromedan's face. 17 weapons? She asked calmly. That seems like an oddly specific number. The second Andromedan stepped forward, his crystalline fingers dancing over the scanner controls. 2 plasma knives concealed in your boots, a neural disruptor in your belt buckle, micro-explosives woven into your jacket lining, combat stimulants in false tooth compartments. The list goes on, human. Your species' obsession with violence knows no bounds. Murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. A group of Vorthon diplomats shook their heads in disgust, their feathered crests bristling with indignation. The Cromlech delegates backed further away, their forearms now holding various defensive postures. Sarah's voice remained steady. "I see. And your scans are absolutely certain of these findings?" "Our technology is flawless," the third Andromedan declared proudly. "Andromedan sensors can detect weapons at the molecular level. We have caught smugglers, assassins, and terrorists from dozens of species. Your human attempt at deception is particularly crude." The lead Andromedan stepped closer, his tall frame looming over Sarah's more modest height. "You will surrender all weapons immediately and submit to detention. The Council will hear of this latest human aggression." Sarah tilted her head slightly, a gesture that might have seemed submissive to those who didn't know better. "Before we proceed, may I ask a question?" "Speak quickly, human." "Your scanners detected 17 weapons. But tell me, exactly how many weapons does a standard Andromedan security officer carry while on duty?" The question seemed to puzzle them. The lead scanner glanced at his companions before answering. "We carry non-lethal restraint devices and emergency protection equipment. Perhaps 3 or 4 items total. We are evolved beings who solve conflicts through superior intellect, not brute force." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And when you scanned me, your equipment identified 17 separate items as weapons?" "Correct. Your point, human?" "My point," Sarah said, her voice taking on a harder edge, "is that your scanners just made a rather significant error." The Andromedans exchanged glances, their confidence wavering slightly. "Impossible. Our technology is flawless." "Yes, you mentioned that." Sarah's lips curved into what wasn't quite a smile. "The problem is I'm not carrying any weapons at all." The declaration sent a shockwave through the crowd. Even the Andromedans stepped back, their crystalline features shifting through various shades of confusion and alarm. "Your scanners detected 17 items," Sarah continued, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "But they weren't weapons. They were parts of my body." The lead Andromedan's voice cracked slightly. "Impossible." "You're lying." "Am I?" Sarah asked. Your scanners detected plasma residue in my boots. That's because I was recently in a plasma storm on Kepler 442b. The neural disruptor in my belt? That's my emergency medical implant for a childhood injury. The micro-explosives in my jacket? Those are the carbon fiber threads that make human clothing durable enough for space travel. Each explanation hit the Andromedans like physical blows. The crowd began murmuring again, but this time the tone was different. Uncertain. Questioning. The combat stimulants you detected in my teeth? Sarah's voice grew colder. Those are standard human medical nanites. Every human has them. They help us survive in environments that would kill most other species. She took a step forward and, for the first time, the Andromedans actually retreated. Your scanners are calibrated for Andromedan physiology and technology, Sarah said. To your equipment, a human body itself registers as a walking arsenal. Our bone density, our muscle fiber composition, our cardiovascular system, our nervous system responses, all of it reads as weapons technology to your sensors. The silence stretched like a taut wire. The Andromedans stood frozen, their superior confidence crumbling like ancient stone. So yes, Sarah concluded, you detected 17 weapons, but you were wrong about one thing. What? The lead Andromedan whispered. Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade. You didn't disarm me. You can't disarm a human because we don't carry weapons. She paused, letting the words sink in. We are the weapon. The tension in the security checkpoint could have been cut with a plasma blade. Sarah stood perfectly still while the three Andromedans processed her words, their crystalline features shifting through spectrum of colors that betrayed their emotional state. The crowd of alien diplomats and station personnel had grown larger, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. You speak in riddles. Human, the lead Andromedan finally said, though his voice lacked its earlier authority. Beings cannot be weapons. You attempt to confuse us with primitive human philosophy. Sarah's expression remained calm, almost serene. Not philosophy, biology. Tell me, what do you know about human evolution? The second Andromedan scoffed, his crystalline skin flickering with dismissive purple hues. We know your species evolved from primitive beasts on a death world. Your planet is a nightmare of natural disasters, predators, and toxic environments. It's remarkable you survived to develop space travel at all. Exactly, Sarah said, and something in her tone made several aliens in the crowd step back instinctively. We evolved on what you call a death world. Do you know what that means for our physiology? The Andromedans exchanged uncertain glances. Around them, other species listened with growing unease. A group of peaceful ethereal beings, creatures of pure energy who had transcended physical conflict millennia ago, began drifting away from the scene entirely. Earth wasn't just dangerous because of natural disasters, Sarah continued, her voice taking on the tone of a lecturer describing a particularly fascinating subject. It was dangerous because everything on our planet was trying to kill everything else. For millions of years, survival meant being faster, stronger, and more adaptable than whatever was hunting you. She gestured casually, and the simple movement made the Andromedans flinch. Your scanners detected 17 potential weapons because the human body is essentially 17 different weapon systems that evolved naturally. Our bone density is 3 times that of most galactic species. Our muscle fibers can generate explosive force that would shatter an Andromedan's crystalline structure. The lead Andromedan's color shifted to alarmed orange. You threaten us? I'm educating you, Sarah replied. Your species evolved on a garden world with minimal predators and abundant resources. You developed technology to solve problems. Humans developed ourselves. When an Earth predator attacked, we couldn't retreat to our laboratories and invent a solution. We had to fight or die in that moment. A low whistle came from somewhere in the crowd. Sarah recognized the sound as a Cromlech expression of respectful fear. The 4 armed warriors understood better than most what it meant to be forged by violence. Our cardiovascular system can shift into combat mode in milliseconds, Sarah continued, warming to her subject. Our adrenal response can triple our strength and speed while suppressing pain receptors. Our vision sharpens, our hearing becomes acute, and our reaction time drops to superhuman levels. The third Andromedan, who had been silent until now, spoke in a trembling voice. The combat stimulants your scanners detected, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and a dozen other chemicals that every human body produces naturally, Sarah confirmed. in quantities that would be lethal to most species. We literally drug ourselves into a combat state whenever we perceive a threat. The crowd was becoming visibly agitated. Some aliens were backing away entirely, while others seemed transfixed by the revelation. Sarah noticed a group of Zephyrian scholars frantically taking notes on their data tablets. But surely, the lead Andromedan said desperately, your species has evolved beyond such primitive responses. You've joined the Galactic Council. You've embraced civilization. Sarah's smile was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply honest. We've learned to control our nature, not eliminate it. Every human you meet carries the genetic legacy of survivors. We're the descendants of the ones who were too stubborn to die, too fierce to be prey, too adaptable to be conquered. She took another step forward, and this time all three Andromedans retreated. Your scanners didn't malfunction. They correctly identified that I am a living weapon. My hands can crush your windpipe before you could call for help. My legs can propel me fast enough to catch you if you run. My teeth can bite through materials that would dull your finest cutting tools. The security checkpoint had gone completely silent, except for the nervous breathing of various alien species. Even the ambient hum of the station's systems seemed muted. The neural disruptor your equipment detected? Sarah continued relentlessly. That's a human brain operating at full capacity. We process information, analyze threats, and formulate responses faster than most AI systems. We can track multiple moving targets simultaneously while calculating trajectories, impact forces, and optimal strike points. A Vorthon diplomat near the back of the crowd fainted, his feathered form crumpling to the deck. No one moved to help him. Everyone was too focused on the human standing calmly in the center of the security checkpoint. The micro-explosives in my clothing? Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, which somehow made it more terrifying than if she had shouted. Those are just the reinforcement fibers. But if you want to see real explosives, consider this. A human punch can generate over 1,500 pounds of force per square inch. That's enough to crack most alien skeletal structures. We call it non-lethal force. The lead Andromedan's crystalline skin had shifted to pure white, the color of absolute terror in his species. What do you want from us? Sarah's expression softened slightly, returning to the polite diplomatic mask she had worn when first entering the checkpoint. Nothing. I want to proceed to my scheduled meeting with the Council. I have important business to discuss regarding trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Here was a being who had just described herself as a walking weapons platform, now speaking casually about trade negotiations as if she hadn't just terrified an entire crowd of galactic diplomats. But you said, the second Andromedan stammered. I said we are weapons, Sarah agreed. I never said we were uncontrolled weapons. The same evolution that made us dangerous also gave us intelligence, empathy, and social cooperation. We learned to direct our capabilities toward protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. She gestured toward the crowd. Every being here is safer because humans exist. We are the species that says, not on my watch, when predators threaten the innocent. We are the ones who run toward danger when others run away. The Andromedans stared at her in confusion and dawning comprehension. Around them, the crowd began to murmur with a different tone entirely. Fear was giving way to something else. Respect. Maybe even admiration. So, Sarah said pleasantly, may I proceed to my meeting now? Or do you need to scan me again to confirm I'm still human? The three Andromedans stood frozen in their security checkpoint, their crystalline bodies cycling through confused colors as they processed Sarah's request. The lead scanner's voice cracked when he finally spoke. You may proceed, human Chen. Sarah nodded politely and stepped toward the exit, but her movement was interrupted by a new voice cutting through the crowd. Hold there, Earth creature. The voice belonged to a Vaktar warrior, one of 5 who had just emerged from a side corridor. The Vaktar were among the most feared species in the galaxy, 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. They served as elite enforcers for the more aggressive council members, and their reputation for violence was legendary. The lead Vaktar stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Sarah. His name was Korash, according to the rank insignia burned into his chest plate. His red eyes glowed with predatory interest as he studied the small human standing before him. We heard your little speech, soft skin. Korash rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. Very impressive words. Very frightening theories about human evolution. His mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. But words are just noise. The Vaktar know truth through action. The crowd of aliens pressed back against the walls, giving the confrontation more space. The Andromedans actually climbed over their scanner console to put more distance between themselves and what was about to unfold. Sarah turned to face the Vaktar warriors, her expression curious rather than alarmed. "Is there a problem, Korash?" The use of his name surprised the warrior briefly, but he recovered quickly. "You claim humans are weapons. The Vaktar have conquered 17 star systems. We have crushed armies and broken fleets. We know weapons when we see them." He flexed his forearms, each one ending in claws that could shred steel. "You look like prey." "Appearances can be deceiving," Sarah said mildly. Karash's mandibles clicked again. "Indeed they can. Perhaps you are more than you appear. Perhaps you are less. There is only one way to discover truth." The other 4 Vaktar spread out in a semicircle behind their leader, a practiced formation that spoke of countless battles fought together. Each warrior stood ready to strike, their natural weapons gleaming under the station's lights. "You challenge me to combat?" Sarah asked, and there was something almost amused in her tone. "I challenge you to prove your claims," Karash replied. "Show us these human weapons you spoke of. Demonstrate this evolution you boast about. Or admit that your species spreads fear through lies and deception." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Many aliens were already fleeing the area entirely, unwilling to witness what they expected would be a massacre. The Vaktar had never been defeated in single combat by any galactic species. Sarah looked around at the remaining spectators, then back at the 5 warriors surrounding her. "Very well, but I should warn you about something first. Speak your warning, soft skin." "When I said humans were weapons, I was being modest," Sarah said quietly. "We're not just weapons. We're weapons designed by evolution to hunt other weapons." Korash's red eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Earth wasn't just dangerous because of natural disasters," Sarah continued, her voice taking on that same lecturing tone she had used with the Andromedans. "It was dangerous because it was full of creatures exactly like you. Predators with natural armor, claws, superior size and strength, creatures that any sane species would avoid or flee from." She gestured casually toward Korash. "But humans didn't evolve to be sane. We evolved to be persistence hunters. We specialized in tracking down and killing things that were bigger, stronger, and better armed than we were." The Vaktar warriors exchanged glances, their confidence beginning to waver slightly. Around them, the remaining aliens watched in fascinated horror. "Your species conquers through superior firepower and intimidation," Sarah observed. "Very effective strategies. But they only work if your opponents fight the way you expect them to fight." Korash's claws extended fully. "Enough talk. Show us these human weapons or be revealed as a liar and coward." Sarah nodded once. "As you wish." What happened next would be discussed in diplomatic circles for generations to come. Sarah didn't attack. She didn't even move aggressively. Instead, she simply changed. Her posture shifted subtly. Her breathing pattern altered and something fundamental transformed in her presence. The cheerful diplomat vanished, replaced by something that had crawled out of humanity's most violent nightmares. The change was so profound that several aliens in the crowd gasped audibly. Even the Vaktar took an involuntary step backward. "Humans don't just carry weapons," Sarah said, and her voice was different now, colder, focused, utterly without mercy. "We become weapons. Every muscle fiber, every reflex, every thought process optimized for one purpose, ending threats." Korash tried to regain his composure. "Pretty words will not—" He never finished the sentence. Sarah moved. Later, security footage would be analyzed frame by military strategists across the galaxy. The consensus would be that what happened defied several known laws of physics and biology. Sarah's body coiled like a spring and exploded into motion. Her first step cracked the metal flooring beneath her feet. Her hand struck Korash's throat with surgical precision, crushing his larynx before he could even register that she had moved. As Korash stumbled backward, gasping for air through his ruined windpipe, Sarah was already engaging the second warrior. Her elbow drove into the creature's solar plexus with enough force to crack his natural armor plating. The Vaktar doubled over, and Sarah's knee came up to meet his descending head with a sound like breaking stone. The third warrior managed to swing one clawed arm toward her, But Sarah flowed around the attack like water, her hand catching his wrist and twisting with mechanical precision. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the checkpoint as the warrior's arm bent in directions nature never intended. Warriors 4 and 5 attacked simultaneously from opposite sides. Thinking to overwhelm her with coordinated strikes, Sarah dropped into a crouch that carried her below their attacks, then exploded upward with both fists extended. Her right hand caught one warrior under the chin, snapping his head back with whiplash force. Her left drove into the other's abdomen, lifting his massive form completely off the ground. From first movement to final strike, the entire engagement lasted exactly 47 seconds. 5 Vaktar warriors, each one a legendary combatant who had conquered star systems, lay groaning on the deck around Sarah's feet. She stood among them, not even breathing hard, her diplomatic expression already returning. The silence in the checkpoint was absolute. "As I was saying," Sarah said pleasantly, smoothing down her jacket, "may I proceed to my meeting now?" The aftermath of the confrontation rippled through the space station like a shockwave, as Sarah walked calmly away from the security checkpoint, leaving 5 groaning Vaktar warriors in her wake. Emergency medical teams rushed to tend to the wounded. The scene she left behind would become the stuff of legend. Word traveled faster than light through the diplomatic quarters. Within minutes, every ambassador, trade delegate, and cultural attaché on the station knew what had happened. The story grew with each telling, but remarkably, even the most exaggerated versions fell short of the actual truth. Sarah made her way through corridors that seemed to empty ahead of her passage. Aliens who moments before had been going about their routine business suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. She passed a group of Zephyrian scholars who pressed themselves against the wall as she approached, their translucent skin flickering with nervous energy. "Commander Chen," one of them whispered as she passed. It wasn't a greeting so much as an acknowledgement of presence, the way one might acknowledge a natural disaster or force of nature. Sarah smiled politely and nodded. "Scholars. Lovely day, isn't it?" The Zephyrians stared after her in bewildered silence as she continued down the corridor. The diplomatic wing of the station was a marvel of interspecies architecture, designed to accommodate the needs of hundreds of different alien physiologies. Gravity fields shifted subtly from section to section, atmospheric composition adjusted automatically, and the lighting spectrum changed to match the preferences of whoever happened to be passing through. Sarah's destination was Conference Room Omega 7, where the Trade Regulation Committee was scheduled to discuss new shipping routes through human space. It should have been a routine meeting, the kind of bureaucratic necessity that kept galactic commerce flowing smoothly. Instead, she arrived to find the conference room in chaos. Through the transparent aluminum walls, she could see a dozen different species gathered around the curved table, all talking at once in a cacophony of languages and communication methods. The ethereal delegation was pulsing with agitated energy patterns. The Droshan representatives were clicking their carapaces in rapid-fire staccato bursts. Even the normally serene Vorthan diplomats were ruffling their feathers in distress. Sarah paused at the entrance, observing the scene with professional interest. As a xenobiologist turned diplomat, she had learned to read the emotional states of various alien species. What she saw now was fear, uncertainty, and something else. A kind of awed respect that hadn't been there in her previous dealings with these beings. The room fell silent as she entered. Ambassador Threlnak of the Droshan Collective was the first to speak, his compound eyes focusing on Sarah with laser intensity. "Commander Chen, we have heard reports of an incident at the security checkpoint." "A minor misunderstanding," Sarah replied, taking her seat at the human delegation's position. "Nothing that should interfere with our scheduled discussions." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Trade Minister Voxeril of the Andromedans cleared his throat with a sound like grinding crystal. "Commander, we must address what occurred. The implications for galactic security protocols are significant, yes," Sarah agreed. "Perhaps this is an opportunity to review those protocols. The current scanning procedures seem inadequately calibrated for human physiology." More silence. Sarah pulled out her data pad and began reviewing the meeting agenda, as if nothing unusual had happened. "Shall we begin with item 1? The proposed shipping lanes through the Tauseti system?" Ambassador Threlnak's mandibles clicked nervously. "Commander Chen, with respect, we cannot simply proceed as if..." As if 5 Vaktar warriors are not currently in the medical bay. Sarah looked up from her pad with an expression of mild surprise. Are they? I hope their injuries aren't serious. Perhaps we should send flowers. The suggestion was so absurd, delivered with such genuine-sounding concern, that several delegates actually recoiled in shock. Trade Minister Voxeral's crystalline features shifted to a pale blue color. Commander, you defeated 5 Vaktar warriors in under a minute. With your bare hands, this changes everything. Does it? Sarah asked. We're here to discuss trade routes, not combat techniques. Unless you're planning to weaponize cargo containers, I fail to see the relevance. But even as she spoke, Sarah could see the calculations happening behind alien eyes. Every species in the room was reassessing their relationship with humanity, their trade agreements, their territorial boundaries. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and everyone knew it. The ethereal delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a humanoid force field, spoke in harmonious tones that bypassed the translator entirely. The ethereals have existed for 50,000 years without resorting to physical violence. We thought such primitive behaviors had been left behind by evolved species. Sarah nodded respectfully. The ethereals have my admiration for achieving such a state. However, not all species have had the luxury of evolving beyond their defensive capabilities. Some of us still live in a universe where predators exist. But humans joined the Galactic Council, protested Ambassador Threlnak. You passed all the civilization assessments. You demonstrated advanced technology, social cooperation, artistic achievement. All true, Sarah confirmed. But did anyone ask whether we had also retained our survival instincts? Whether we had kept the capabilities that allowed us to survive long enough to develop those achievements? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Around the table, representatives of peaceful species who had dominated galactic politics for millennia began to understand that their assumptions about human nature had been dangerously incomplete, Minister. Voxeral leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. How many humans are there? On Earth? About 12 billion now, Sarah replied casually. But we've colonized 47 worlds in the past 5 years since joining the Council. The expansion rate is accelerating as we gain access to better transportation technology. The number hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. 12 billion beings with the demonstrated capability to defeat Vaktar warriors in hand-to-hand combat. 47 worlds populated by persistence hunters evolved on a death world. Of course, Sarah continued. Most humans are peaceful researchers, artists, farmers, engineers. We much prefer building things to breaking them. But as you've just seen, we maintain our flexibility when circumstances require it. The trade minister of the Quillian Republic, a small, timid species known for their exceptional mathematical abilities, spoke in a trembling voice. What do humans want? Sarah smiled, and this time the expression was entirely genuine. The same thing most species want. Peace, prosperity, and the chance to explore the universe alongside our galactic neighbors. We're not conquerors, Minister. We're survivors. And we've learned that the best way to survive is to protect those who can't protect themselves. She gestured around the table. Every being in this room is safer because humans exist. We are the species that runs toward danger when others run away. We are the shield between civilization and the darkness that still exists in the galaxy. The room remained silent, but the quality of the silence had changed. Fear was giving way to something else, not quite relief, but a dawning understanding that perhaps they had gained not a threat, but a guardian. Now, Sarah said, returning to her datapad, about those shipping routes through Tau Ceti. 3 hours later, the trade meeting had concluded with unprecedented cooperation from all parties. Shipping routes that had been disputed for decades were suddenly approved without argument. Tariff negotiations that typically took months were resolved in minutes. It seemed that witnessing a human in action had given the assembled delegates a new perspective on the value of maintaining positive relationships with Earth, as the various alien representatives filed out of the conference room. Each casting furtive glances at Sarah, she remained behind to organize her notes. The meeting had gone better than she had hoped, though not exactly as she had planned. Commander Chen. Sarah looked up to find Ambassador Threlnak lingering by the doorway. The Droshan's compound eyes were focused on her with an intensity that suggested he had something important to discuss. Ambassador, she replied pleasantly. Was there something else you needed to discuss regarding the shipping arrangements? Threlnak's mandibles clicked in what Sarah recognized as nervous hesitation. Not about shipping, no. I wanted to speak with you about other matters. Sarah gestured to the chair across from her. Please sit. What's on your mind? The Droshan settled into the chair with the careful movements of a creature still processing unexpected revelations. His carapace was a muted brown color, indicating thoughtfulness in his species. Commander, I must ask you something directly. Threlnak began. When your species applied to join the Galactic Council, you submitted detailed reports on human capabilities, military strength, technological advancement, cultural development. But nowhere in those reports was there any mention of individual combat effectiveness. Sarah nodded. That's correct. Was this an oversight? Or was it intentional? The question was asked quietly, but Sarah could hear the weight behind it. This wasn't idle curiosity. The Droshan Collective was one of the most influential trading powers in the galaxy, and their support had been crucial for humanity's acceptance into the Council. Neither, Sarah replied honestly. We simply answered the questions we were asked. The application process focused on species-level capabilities. No one asked about individual physiology or evolutionary adaptations. Threlnak's mandibles clicked rapidly. But surely you realize that such information would be relevant to our assessment of humanity's place in galactic society. Sarah leaned back in her chair, considering her response carefully. Ambassador, may I ask you a question in return? Of course. When the Droshan Collective first encountered the Vaktar, did you immediately inform them about your species' ability to survive in hard vacuum for extended periods? Or about your natural resistance to most toxins? The alien's eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of surprise. Those are defensive adaptations. Survival mechanisms. They pose no threat to other species. Exactly, Sarah said. From a human perspective, our combat capabilities are defensive adaptations. Survival mechanisms. We didn't think to mention them because we don't think of them as threatening to peaceful species. Threlnak was quiet for a long moment, his carapace shifting to a deeper shade of brown. But the Vaktar are not a peaceful species. They are predators, conquerors. And you defeated 5 of them as easily as I might swat an insect? True, Sarah acknowledged. But consider this. In all the time humans have been members of the Galactic Council, how many unprovoked attacks have we made on other species? None, Threlnak admitted immediately. How many territorial disputes have we initiated? None. How many trade wars have we started? How many diplomatic incidents have we caused? How many times have we used our military capabilities to intimidate smaller species into unfavorable agreements? The Droshan's silence was answer enough. Sarah leaned forward slightly. Ambassador, the fact that we can do something doesn't mean we will do it. Humans learned long ago that true strength isn't about dominating others. It's about protecting those who need protection. But your display today, Threlnak protested. The violence, the efficiency with which you disable those warriors. It was frightening. It was necessary, Sarah corrected. The Vaktar challenged me to prove human capabilities. If I had backed down, it would have been seen as weakness. In galactic politics, perceived weakness invites aggression. She gestured toward the window where the stars of the galactic core shimmered in the distance. How many species in this galaxy live in fear of the Vaktar? How many worlds pay tribute to avoid their wrath? How many civilizations have been enslaved or destroyed by beings like them? Threlnak's carapace had shifted to a contemplative gray.
Many. Too many. And now they know that such behavior has consequences, Sarah said quietly.
That there is a species in the galaxy that will not be intimidated, will not be conquered, will not stand by while predators terrorize the innocent. The Droshan ambassador sat in silence for several minutes, processing the implications. Finally, he spoke again. The Council will need to be informed about human capabilities. This changes the strategic balance of the galaxy. I understand, Sarah replied, and I'm prepared to provide whatever information is needed. But I hope the Council will also consider the positive implications of what happened today. Positive implications? Sarah smiled. Ambassador, for the first time in galactic history, peaceful species don't have to fear aggressive ones. The Vaktar, the Krillian Raiders, the savage clans of the Outer Rim. They all operate on the assumption that civilized beings are helpless against brute force. She stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the stars. That assumption is now invalid. Every predator species in the galaxy just learned that there are consequences for attacking the innocent. Every peaceful civilization just discovered they have protectors. Threlnak joined her at the window, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. And if humanity decides that protection comes with a price? If you become the very predators you claim to oppose? Sarah turned to face him, and her expression was serious but not threatening. Then you'll do what any intelligent species would do. You'll band together and find a way to stop us. The galaxy is full of brilliant minds and advanced technologies. If humans ever became a threat to galactic peace, we wouldn't remain a threat for long. The honesty of the statement seemed to surprise the Droshan. You would not object to such resistance? Ambassador, we would encourage it, Sarah said firmly. Humans believe that power must be checked by accountability. If we ever lost sight of our principles, if we ever became the monsters we evolved to fight, then it would be the duty of every civilized being to oppose us. She returned to her seat and began packing her notes. But I don't think that will be necessary. You see, humans have one evolutionary adaptation that's even more important than our combat capabilities, which is empathy, Sarah said simply. The same evolution that made us dangerous also gave us the ability to care about others. We can't be truly safe until everyone is safe. We can't be truly happy while others suffer. It's hardwired into our psychology. Threlnak's carapace shifted to a lighter shade, indicating growing understanding. The protector instinct. Exactly. We're not apex predators, Ambassador. We're guardian predators. There's a difference. As if summoned by their conversation, Sarah's communication device chimed with an incoming message. She glanced at the display and frowned slightly. Is something wrong? Threlnak asked. Sarah looked up from the device, her expression thoughtful. Perhaps. I've just received word that the Vaktar Confederation is demanding my arrest for assault on their warriors. The Droshan's eyes blinked rapidly in alarm. Will you comply with the demand? Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade. Oh, I'll definitely respond to their demand. But I don't think they're going to like my answer. She stood and headed for the door, then paused and looked back at Threlnak. Ambassador, you might want to inform the Council that this situation isn't over yet. In fact, I suspect it's just beginning. As Sarah left the conference room, Threlnak remained by the window, staring out at the stars and wondering if the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented in its long history. A species that was both powerful enough to enforce peace and wise enough to know when to use that power. The communication from the Vaktar Confederation had been brief and arrogant, demanding that humanity surrender Sarah for trial under Vaktar law. It was exactly the kind of ultimatum that aggressive species had used for millennia to intimidate weaker ones. But humanity wasn't weaker, and Sarah Chen was about to demonstrate exactly what that meant for the future of galactic politics. The game had changed, and the old rules no longer applied. The predators of the galaxy were about to learn that evolution had produced something they had never encountered before: prey that could bite back. Sarah strode through the diplomatic quarters with purposeful steps, her communication device buzzing constantly with incoming messages. Word of the Vaktar Confederation's ultimatum had spread through the station's networks faster than a plasma fire, and every major power in the galaxy seemed to have an opinion about humanity's response. The ethereal collective urged peaceful negotiation. The Andromedans suggested immediate compliance to avoid galactic conflict. The Zephyrian scholars requested permission to study the situation for historical significance. Even the reclusive Voidwalkers had emerged from their dimensional isolation to observe what they termed a pivotal moment in galactic evolution. Sarah ignored them all. She had more important matters to attend to. Her destination was the station's primary communications center, a massive complex capable of transmitting messages across galactic distances in real time. As she approached the facility, she found her path blocked by Security Chief Vexani, a towering Quarian whose 6 arms were crossed in a gesture of polite but firm obstruction. Commander Chen, Vexani rumbled in his deep, resonant voice. I'm afraid I cannot allow you to access the communications center at this time. Sarah raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? The station administrator has placed restrictions on all human communications pending resolution of the current crisis, the security chief explained. We cannot risk further escalation of tensions with the Vaktar Confederation. I see, Sarah said thoughtfully. And these restrictions apply to all official diplomatic communications? All communications, Commander. I apologize, but the decision comes from the highest levels of station authority. Sarah nodded understandingly, then smiled. Chief Vexani, may I ask you a personal question? The Quarian's 6 eyes blinked in confusion. I suppose so. Do you have family? Children, perhaps. I have 3 offspring, yes. Why do you ask? And if someone threatened your children, if a predator species demanded that you surrender them for some invented crime, what would you do? Vexani's massive frame stiffened. I would protect them with my life. Of course you would, Sarah agreed. Any decent being would. The maternal and paternal instincts transcend species boundaries. She stepped closer to the security chief, and something in her presence made the towering alien take an involuntary step backward. Chief, the Vaktar Confederation has just threatened a member of my species, my family in the broader sense. They're demanding that I be surrendered to them for the crime of defending myself against their unprovoked aggression. Sarah's voice remained calm and reasonable, but there was steel beneath the silk. Now you can either step aside and allow me to respond to this threat through proper diplomatic channels, or you can force me to find alternative methods of communication. Vexani's 6 eyes darted nervously. Commander, I have my orders, and I have mine, Sarah replied. I am the official representative of humanity to the Galactic Council. My government has given me full authority to respond to threats against human citizens. Are you really prepared to interfere with official diplomatic business? The security chief's resolve was crumbling visibly. After witnessing what had happened to the Vaktar warriors, the last thing he wanted was a confrontation with an angry human. The regulations clearly state, Chief, Sarah interrupted gently. You're a good being trying to do a difficult job. I respect that. But right now, you're standing between a human and a threat to her family. In our evolutionary history, that's never ended well for anyone. The statement was delivered without menace, but the implications were unmistakable. Vexani's 6 arms slowly uncrossed, and he stepped aside with obvious reluctance. Thank you, Sarah said pleasantly, and walked past him into the communication center. The facility was a marvel of galactic engineering, with quantum transmitters capable of reaching every corner of known space. Sarah approached the primary console and began entering her authorization codes. Within moments, she had established a secure connection to Earth Command. Admiral Rebecca Harrison's image materialized in the holographic display, her weathered features showing concern. Sarah, we've been monitoring the situation. Are you all right? I'm fine, Admiral. But we have a diplomatic crisis that requires immediate attention. The Vaktar ultimatum, yes. We received their transmission 20 minutes ago. Arrogant bastards are demanding your extradition within 48 hours or they'll consider it an act of war. Sarah's expression remained calm. What's the official response from Earth Command? Admiral Harrison's smile was sharp as a plasma cutter. The official response, Commander, is that the Vaktar Confederation can go to hell. No human citizen will be surrendered to alien justice for the crime of self-defense. Understood, Admiral, but I suspect they'll escalate when they receive that message. Oh, they will, Harrison agreed. Intelligence suggests they're already mobilizing their fleet. 3 battle groups are heading toward the Sol system as we speak. The information should have been alarming, but Sarah felt only a cold satisfaction. The Vaktar were making exactly the mistake she had hoped they would make. Admiral, I'm transmitting my complete report on the incident, along with all relevant station security footage. I want this information distributed to every member of the Galactic Council within the hour. Already in progress, Harrison replied. The whole galaxy will know exactly what happened and why. But Sarah, you need to understand this isn't just about you anymore. The Vaktar are using this incident as a pretext for something bigger. Agreed. They see humanity as a threat to their dominance and want to test our resolve before we become too established in galactic politics. Harrison nodded grimly. Intel suggests they've been planning something like this for months. Your little demonstration just gave them the excuse they needed. Sarah was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. When she spoke again, her voice carried a hard edge that would have made the Vaktar warriors reconsider their ultimatum. Admiral, I need you to do something for me. Name it. I want you to send a message to the Vaktar Confederation. Tell them that Commander Sarah Chen declines their generous offer of Vaktar justice. Tell them that any attempt to harm human citizens or territory will be met with appropriate response. And if they ask what appropriate response means? Sarah's smile was terrifying in its complete lack of warmth. Tell them they're about to find out why humans are the apex predators on a death world. Tell them they're about to learn why evolution made us into weapons. She paused, then added quietly, "And Admiral, activate Protocol 7. Harrison's eyes widened slightly. Protocol 7 was humanity's contingency plan for first contact with truly hostile alien species, the kind of contact that could only be resolved through overwhelming demonstration of human capabilities. Are you certain, Sarah? Once we implement Protocol 7, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see humanity the same way again. The galaxy was never going to see us the same way after today anyway," Sarah replied. "At least this way we control the narrative." Harrison nodded slowly. "Understood. Protocol 7 is authorized. Give me 12 hours to get everything in position." 12 hours it is. Chen out. As the communication link closed, Sarah remained standing before the console, staring at her reflection in the darkened screen. In 12 hours, the Vaktar Confederation would learn what it meant to threaten humanity. In 12 hours, the entire galaxy would understand why it was better to have humans as allies than enemies. She turned to leave the communications center and found Security Chief Vexani waiting for her with obvious anxiety. "Commander," he began hesitantly, "was that wise? The Vaktar are not known for backing down from threats." Sarah's expression was serene, almost peaceful. "Chief, the Vaktar aren't dealing with threats. They're dealing with promises." As she walked away, Vexani couldn't help but notice that the human's footsteps seemed to echo with the sound of approaching thunder. Exactly 12 hours later, the Vaktar response fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 3 massive battle groups representing the full military might of the Confederation had come to collect one small human female and demonstrate their dominance over the newest member of the Galactic Council. Warlord Kreshitar commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Blood of Conquest. His red eyes gleamed with anticipation as he surveyed the primitive human defenses scattered throughout their home system. A few orbital stations, some outdated patrol craft, and one moderately impressive space station orbiting their homeworld. It would take perhaps an hour to crush their resistance and claim their surrender. "Open a channel to the human homeworld," Kreshtar commanded. "Let them hear the voice of their conquest." The communication array activated, broadcasting on all human frequencies. Kreshtar's image appeared on screens throughout the Sol system, his massive form radiating menace and authority. "Humans of Earth," his voice rumbled across space. "I am Warlord Kreshitar of the Vaktar Confederation. You have harbored a criminal who assaulted Vaktar warriors unprovoked. You will surrender this criminal immediately, along with full reparations for the insult to Vaktar honor." He paused dramatically, allowing his words to sink in. "You have 1 hour to comply. Failure to surrender the criminal Sarah Chen will result in the complete subjugation of your species. Your worlds will burn, your fleets will be scattered, and your people will serve as slaves to the Confederation." The transmission ended, leaving only the cold silence of space. For several minutes, there was no response from the human forces. The Vaktar fleet waited, engines humming with contained power, weapon systems charged and ready. Some of the younger warriors began to grow restless, eager for the violence to begin. Then, unexpectedly, a new transmission began broadcasting from Earth. Not from military command or government headquarters, but from what appeared to be a simple communication relay. The image that appeared was Sarah Chen, standing in what looked like an ordinary office. She appeared calm, almost serene as she addressed the Vaktar fleet. "Warlord Kreshtar," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the void. "I've received your message. Before I respond, I'd like to share something with you." The transmission shifted, displaying footage from the space station incident. The entire confrontation played out in perfect detail. The Vaktar challenge, Sarah's transformation, and the swift defeat of 5 elite warriors. "This is what one human can do when threatened," Sarah's voice continued over the footage. "What you're about to see is what humanity can do when one of our own is threatened." The transmission cut back to Sarah, and now her expression had changed. The diplomatic mask was gone, replaced by something that made even Kreshitar's seasoned warriors step back from their viewing screens. "You came to our home system with 3 battle groups," Sarah said quietly. "You brought 57 warships to intimidate 12 billion humans. You threatened to enslave our species and burn our worlds." She leaned forward slightly, and her next words seemed to echo with the weight of an entire species' evolutionary history. That was a mistake. Across the Sol system, space itself seemed to shimmer and bend. What the Vaktar had mistaken for primitive orbital stations suddenly revealed their true nature as massive cloaking arrays. As the concealment fields dropped, the true scope of human military preparation became apparent. The Sol system was armed to the teeth. Hidden asteroid fortresses revealed themselves, bristling with weapons that made Vaktar technology look primitive. Stealth frigates decloaked in perfect formation, their sleek hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun. Behind the moon, a massive dreadnought emerged from concealment, a ship so large it created its own gravitational field. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. You see, Warlord, Sarah continued, humans have been preparing for this moment since we first learned we weren't alone in the galaxy. We studied every aggressive species we encountered. We analyzed their tactics, their weaknesses, their psychology. The space around the Vaktar fleet began to fill with contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Human ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect coordination, surrounding the Vaktar formation in a sphere of overwhelming firepower. We learned that species like yours only understand one language, Sarah said, so we became fluent in that language. Kreshatar stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. His 57 ships were surrounded by a human fleet that numbered in the thousands. Worse, the energy readings from the human vessels suggested weapon systems far more advanced than anything in the Vaktar arsenal. Impossible, he whispered. Intelligence reported minimal human military capability. Intelligence was wrong, Sarah replied as if she could hear his thoughts. We showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Humans learned long ago that the best defense is to appear weak, while secretly growing strong. The transmission shifted again, this time showing views from throughout human space. The 47 colonies the Vaktar had thought were lightly defended farming worlds revealed their own hidden fleets. Every human settlement was protected by military forces that had been concealed with technology the Vaktar couldn't even detect. You wanted to test human resolve, Sarah continued. Consider this your answer. Admiral Harrison's voice cut through the communications channel, cold and professional. Vaktar fleet, this is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned by a ratio of 50-1. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Kreshtar's pride warred with his survival instincts. No Vaktar had ever surrendered without a fight, but no Vaktar had ever faced odds like these. If we surrender, he transmitted back, what guarantee do we have of fair treatment? Sarah's image reappeared on the screen and now she was smiling. It wasn't a cruel smile, but it was absolutely without mercy. The same guarantee you offered humanity, she replied. None. The statement hung in space like a death sentence. Around the Vaktar fleet, human weapons powered up with ominous energy signatures. However, Sarah continued, humans are not Vaktar. We don't conquer for the sake of conquest and we don't enslave the defeated. Your crews will be treated according to the standards of galactic law. Your ships will be confiscated as reparations for your unprovoked aggression. You personally will stand trial for crimes against galactic peace. She paused, letting the term sink in. Or you can choose to fight and discover why humans are considered the apex predators of a death world. The choice is yours, Warlord. Kreshatar looked around at his bridge crew, seeing his own shock and fear reflected in their faces. 3 battle groups had seemed like overwhelming force when facing a primitive species. Against the revealed might of humanity, they were nothing more than target practice. Power down all weapons, he ordered quietly. Signal our surrender to the human fleet. As the Vaktar ships complied, their weapon systems going dark one by one, Sarah's final words echoed across the communication channels. Let this be a lesson to any species that threatens humanity or our allies. We are the children of a death world, forged by evolution to survive and protect. We are the guardians of the innocent and the nightmare of the aggressive. The transmission ended, leaving the Vaktar fleet floating helpless in space, surrounded by the overwhelming evidence of human military might. Throughout the galaxy, other species watched the footage and recordings that flooded the communication networks. The message was clear. Humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as the new apex predators of known space. The age of Vaktar dominance was over. The age of human protection had begun, and in a small office on Earth, Sarah Chen calmly returned to her paperwork. satisfied that the galaxy had learned an important lesson about the dangers of threatening a species that evolution had designed to bite back. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter. As if the universe itself approved of the new balance of power, predators still existed among the stars, but now they knew they were no longer at the top of the food chain. Humanity had taken its place as the guardians of galactic peace, and the innocent could sleep safely, knowing that someone was watching over them with the fury of a Deathworld's children.